Welcome to the Community Forum. My name is John Gogliettino, and I'm your host. This evening we're going to be talking about the 5th Congressional District. We have an interesting race shaping up, and with me tonight is Dan Roberti. He's running, I believe he's from the city of Bridgeport originally, and well, we're going to get into that during the interview. He's been here about 6 months ago. We're doing a progress check on how he's doing in his campaign. I want to welcome you to the show once again.
John, thank you so much for having me back on.
Okay.
It's a pleasure to see you again.
You're welcome. Okay. So before we get into our questions, tell us a little bit about yourself. You know, where you actually you went to school and where you were born and where you were educated, and that kind of thing is usually what the viewers want to hear about.
Absolutely. And you were correct. I was born in Bridgeport here in Connecticut. I now live in Kent, so just up Route 7 from all of you here in Danbury. And so I come down to Danbury quite often. I went to school here in Connecticut throughout my life, and in college I went to Loyola University New Orleans. I also did my master's degree there, and I was between college and my master's degree I was in the volunteer corps, where I was actually out in Spokane, Washington, the other side of the country, running the day-to-day operations of a homeless shelter out there before eventually coming back home to Connecticut.
So another question of viewers might say is, okay, why is he doing this? Washington's a mess, and you know, there's the approval rating of Congress depends on what network you're listening to, it seems, but it's somewhere between 5 and 15% approval rating. So you know, you basically want to get the a change. Well, I'll let you answer for yourself. I know you're running. We've talked. But go ahead.
And that's exactly why I am running. Washington's approval rating is rightfully so very, very low. And the reason for that, whether it's 5%, 15%, even if it's 25%, it's low. And it's because it's a direct reflection of the stagnation that's happening down there. We've seen absolutely no progress, particularly in the last Congress. We need a major change down there. And I'm someone, I have a record of working with people. I have a record of service, of being someone who's not a career politician who's going to get stuck in the gridlock, but someone who actually tries to work with people, build coalitions, and I'm going to go down there to work for the people of the 5th District, the people of Danbury, and try to really create progress as opposed to the gridlock that we're in right now. It is a, I love a challenge, and this certainly is going to be a challenge, not just for the member of the 5th District Congress, but for all the members of Congress down there. We got to get past this gridlock that we're in right now.
So the people that you're running against, you would say, are more establishment than yourself. You know, you had non-conventional. Could you tell us about some of the things that you've done that are a little less conventional, and as to contrast with the establishment people, so to speak, that are running? It could be the same old story, you know, for the 5th Congressional District voters.
Exactly, and I'm not a career politician. My background is rooted in service work and also in private sector work as well, and I think those two things combined really gives me a perspective, an on-the-ground perspective of what people really are facing today. As I mentioned, I ran the day-to-day operations of a homeless shelter, and a lot of the people I worked with a lot of veterans who came home from the Iraq and Afghanistan wars and were not, they were not given the opportunities that their skill set really should allow them to for employment. They're highly skilled individuals who didn't get what they needed when they came home. I worked with a lot of families who were coming in because the factory where their family worked at shut down, or the school where their mom or dad was a teacher at was shut down. And so I've worked with folks like that, facing those times time and time again. In the private sector, I've worked with a ton of different small businesses and also nonprofit corporations, the Action Center on World Hunger. I've worked with Corporation for Public Broadcasting and have worked a lot on different policy things that face our environment. I've talked about reimagining our infrastructure, which is something that can immediately create jobs, and also worked in a situation where you find the synthesis. How do you tackle multiple problems at one time. For instance, I'm actually the only candidate right now out there with a jobs bill, jobs plan, I should say, out there that is pages upon pages of concrete things we can do right now to start creating jobs, because right now unemployment 8.5%. It's unbelievably high. We're feeling it here in the 5th District, feeling it right here in Danbury, you know that. And so I'm out there talking about those things, and my background gives me a unique skill set to be able to do that.
Yeah, I was going to add, that was my next question, was to ask about what techniques you were going to employ on the job, in the jobs area. Do you want to be a little more specific? You know, like some of the things you've been involved with that you would like to enact when you're in there?
I would love to.
Okay.
So I've already put out, and it's on www.danroberti.com, phase 1 of a 4-phase jobs plan. And that phase talks specifically about the innovation economy. How do we grow our country forward in looking towards new technologies? Something that is really helpful here in Danbury, of course, would be fuel cell technologies, looking at how we can make this technology grow. They can create jobs that way. A big thing I talk about is making sure that we give people who have PhDs, who have a lot of education, we don't want to get them sucked up into major corporations in the bioscience fields or things of that nature. We want them to be able to take their education and start a company, because 64% of all job creation in the last 15 years, 64% of it comes from startup companies. So we want to get people to start companies now. So that means we already give universities funding to do research and development. Let's also make sure, as part of that, we're teaching people not just how to create new technologies, but how to actually learn how to become entrepreneurs and take that technology into the day-to-day marketplace and create new companies, which then means they can hire different people at different levels, and they can actually start creating jobs right here, right now. The second phase of it, which I'll be releasing very shortly, so look for that soon, is going to be looking at the tried and true methods of job creation, the FDR era infrastructure investments. Now, for starters, you're going to invest in the roads and the bridges, and anyone who's gone up and down Route 7 knows we need investment in infrastructure now. But it's also looking towards the future of infrastructure, high-speed rail, light rail, increasing our broadband technology. It's not just transportation infrastructure, it's our technology infrastructure. Also increasing our electrical grid. Our electrical grid is in dire need right now of being fixed. And what does that mean? Right now we're literally losing money on energy because of our faulty electrical grid. So let's invest in that technology. Let's invest in our schools. The average school building is over 40 years old. That does not help our students get the quality education they need, and we can put people to work right now investing in our school systems and fixing that infrastructure.
For example, converting the school building into a all-year-round facility, as opposed to as soon as it gets hot, they don't have school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We can be finding use for these buildings, and we can update them so that they're able to be capable for all sorts of different summer programs, things of that nature. Increasing the technology in the schools, making the schools more environmentally friendly. You'd be amazed. There's actually, and one thing I put into the jobs plan is this research of school nurses who say, and I forget the exact percentage, but an unbelievably high number of students who end up missing days of school from illnesses that can be attributed to the air quality in the school they're in, because the school, again, it's a 50-year-old, 60-year-old school building that doesn't have the systems that we need to keep the air clean and safe for our children. And that's just something that shouldn't be happening in 2012.
Now, the district entails all kinds of segments, and I forgot to ask you, what is the 5th District? Where does it actually track at this point in time? I dare say that Danbury and Bethel are in it, right?
Yes.
But Richfield is no longer?
No longer.
Okay.
And I love Ridgefield.
And they are covered by this, so if you're from Richfield, you don't need those. But you can watch as long as you want.
Jim Himes is a congressman. Okay. He's a great guy.
Okay.
If you're in Ridgefield.
Okay.
But yes, Danbury, Bethel.
Okay.
If you take Route 7 in Danbury and head north, every town you hit, Kent, New Fairfield, Sherman, Sharon, Salisbury. There's 41 towns in this district. If you head 84 east, you're going to pick up Southbury, basically all the Berries, Waterbury, Middlebury, all the way out to Meriden, heading north then up 8, you'd go all the way to New Britain, Simsbury, Avon. So you've got Farmington Valley, Litchfield County, Northern Fairfield County. It's a big, beautiful, sprawling district.
And as big as it sounds, it's a portion. So the other districts are roughly the same size.
Yes, there's just over 700,000 residents in the district, and you know, we don't have a giant city the way the 4th district has Bridgeport, which is 144,000. We don't have a city quite that big, and the 1st district has Hartford. So we make up for it with more smaller towns.
Right. So, is there do you have an economic philosophy or policy for the smaller towns also?
Yes, and coming from one of the smaller towns.
So your philosophy covers both.
It covers both, and it needs to. If we're going to really do this, we have to do this together. Small towns, mid-sized towns, cities, medium-sized cities, and even the big cities that we don't necessarily have here in this district. But we need Bridgeport to survive. We need Hartford to survive. We need, in our district, Waterbury and Danbury to be vibrant and alive, and we need the smaller towns of Kent and Sharon, and we also need the mid-sized towns of New Milford and Bethel to all be vibrant communities, and Ridgefield too. And it's so important that we do that. One quick example in Kent, north of here, it's a small town, 2,900 folks in the town, but our small businesses really rely heavily on tourism. And we're known as a place to come up and view the foliage, and Yankee Magazine has named us the #1 foliage town 2 years running. Well, prior to this year, under our former governor, not under our current governor, but we weren't a part of the Tourism Council of New England. And so for that reason, not as many people got to know that you should come up and to Kent and use our shops. And when you do that, it helps us out, and we're a population that comes down to Danbury when we need to come down for things that we don't have in our town, and then helping us out ends up helping Danbury out, and vice versa. Helping Danbury out helps us out. So we need the policy.
Yeah.
We need a policy that is going to help everybody, and we need to grow and prosper together. And we're not going to do it by dividing it. And that's the politics of division has gone on far too long. We need to get through that and start working together.
Now, I know that you have some views on the environment, and I know that if you listen to the typical Republican, it makes it sound like the environment, that's a job killer. Don't do it. You know, let's throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's have dirty water again. Let's have pollution. This is the way they talk anyway. You know, they'll strike this down or modify this or modify that. You have any special plans on the environment?
The environment is the exact opposite of a job killer. It is a job creator. We need to embrace environmentalism and the capacity it has for creating jobs. Right here in Danbury, we talked about fuel cell technology, something we can do for our environment, geothermal technology. Now, these technologies aren't right for every scenario, but they are right for certain scenarios, and so we need to identify what those are and invest in those areas and let them grow and prosper. One of the greatest things we can do for the environment is getting cars, particularly older cars, off the road and start having more mass transit. That's the type of thing that's going to help create jobs, particularly if we increase the railroad that comes here to Danbury for passenger rail, bring it up to New Milford, which is in the works, extend it all the way up the area, and you actually start to grow economies as you build that, creating jobs, and everyone prospers, and you're helping the environment. If you encourage businesses to go green, they're going to need to start bringing in folks who are going to do installations of green technology to get you up to lead capacity. You're going to start creating manufacturing jobs around those different types of things that you're bringing in to make those buildings green. So embracing the environment actually means creating jobs, and it is actually one of the fastest growing job sectors today. So it is wrong-headed, and unfortunately will start to stifle any type of job growth that we can embrace right now if we were to try to say, oh no, the environment's a job killer. It's a horrible thing to say.
Now, this has been kicking out there, and it's sort of calmed down, but I'm just bringing this up because you're going to hear about it, I'm sure, and that is the health care, the Obamacare. Do you feel that it's working out and going according to schedule, or do you feel that maybe it should be modified? I don't hear too many responsible people say it should be totally, aside from the Republicans, that they say that the whole thing should be scuttled. Because you talked about whether it's an industrialist like the Fords or you know, magazine owners or whatever, they'll say that we need to have some kind of national philosophy or policy in effect, like we do. Go ahead.
And so what we're seeing right now is a lot of the policies are going to start going into effect this year and next. Some of them already did go into effect. We've already seen situations where, and this is a wonderful thing, where students who come home from college who don't have a job, because there isn't a job for them right now, because Congress hasn't passed a jobs bill yet, and they're looking for work, and they need to be on insurance. Well, how are they going to get insurance? Well, thanks to the new health care law, they can go on their parents' insurance up until the age of 26. That's something that people are really, they're realizing this is a very good thing for families. And so that's been a great success. We as a nation came together and we started to say, we're not going to deny people based on pre-existing conditions, deny them coverage. I know this personally from my own experiences in my own family, where my mother was actually on COBRA when she was diagnosed with cancer, and we said, what are we going to do? She's a pre-existing condition. Well, she thankfully had myself and my family to help her out, but a lot of people don't have those scenarios right there, and they're trying to figure out how are they going to get insurance? How can they afford it? And now we're starting to finally move in that phase where we're saying a pre-existing condition isn't going to deny you health coverage. So you're absolutely correct. A lot of the sort of hoopla that had started up over it in the beginning has died down, because as these things are starting to be enacted and the American people are realizing the benefits of this, are starting to realize this was a good thing. With that said, you can always improve upon things. We're still improving on civil rights over 40 years later. We're going to continue to have to improve upon our health care system. It's not where it needs to be. It's nowhere near where it needs to be. And we're going to continue to have to make fixes and make changes and make it better and stronger for the American people to have the health care they need. And we need to work harder at lowering the overall costs of health care in our country. It's astronomical what it costs to treat people and to get health care and to have people get it. So we need to make health care affordable, and we need to keep working at that. We can't ever give up on that.
Right. Well, very good. Now, I know the foreign policy is the purview of the administration. The president usually leads. You know, he proposes and the Congress disposes. But what are your thoughts on the foreign policy? Is there any changes that you'd like to, because the Congress does have a role. The Senate, you know, can veto certain things the president's doing. You know, he makes certain appointments or whatever. But there's also, you know, you can legislate on whether or not a country gets $500 million or something, and you got an input there. So any thoughts on how things are going?
Exactly. And as you pointed out, Congress, of course, they have oversight over a lot of the decisions the president makes. And there's always a yin-yang with that. There's always a push-pull on that area. But at the end of the day, there's congressional oversight. Right. And there's congressional approval needed for most
revenue
things. Congress also, you can write law and approve various different aid packages to countries around the world, and we always need to be paying attention to the type of aid we're giving out and making sure it's going towards allies and going towards situations where we're really helping the interests of the folks we're helping, and also helping the U.S. interests as well. You know, it's interesting. You don't hear too much negativity from the Republican Party and the presidential candidates right now about the foreign policy of our nation of late, because it's actually where President Obama scores his highest marks in poll after poll after poll. And there are some things we really do need to be paying attention to. Thankfully, the Iraq war has officially come to an end. But that doesn't mean we just take our eyes off of it and move forward. We need to make sure that the things, you know, we still have troops over there. We need to make sure that they're safe. We need to make sure they're doing what they need to be doing, and that we're bringing everyone home that we're supposed to bring home. Afghanistan is now the longest war in U.S. history officially, and it's still going on. So we really need to be making sure we wind that down on the timetable that the President has told us. We need to make sure that 2014 doesn't become 2016, and hopefully Congress can continue to apply pressure to make sure that 2014 maybe can be, that timetable can be moved up, and sooner we can bring our troops back all the quicker and all the safer. You know, aside from the fact that it's American lives at stake, we're also putting tons and tons of money into originally both those wars, and now still have money out in Iraq, and certainly a lot of money out in Afghanistan. We need to make sure that we're winding these wars down. We could go on probably for a long time on foreign policy.
Well, you know, I think the biggest thing that people would be interested in is on trade. You know, in other words, a trade foreign policy. You know, I think you would be interested in having jobs created with our trade agreements rather than losing any more jobs overseas to outsourcing. Because I hear one more company getting outsourced over. You know, like GE is putting a factory now over in China. You know, it seems like it's all our jobs, or all our large scales. Like, when a new factory is being built, that's another 5,000 or so people. They're being placed overseas. So what's your thoughts on that?
Exactly right. And any trade agreements we do enter into, there are many on the table. Some we've entered into. Most famous, of course, would be in the 90s, would be NAFTA. We need to be very careful about trade agreements. We need to make sure we're not losing jobs. We need to keep jobs here in America. I'm a strong supporter of Build in America policies and American-made policies. At the same time, we do have to recognize we're living in a global economy. So how can we do this in a way that allows us to create jobs here? There's also a human rights element to those things. We have many protections here in the U.S. For workers' rights. If you start going overseas, you start to lose a lot of those. And at some points, it's not just losing worker rights, but it's outright human rights violations. And as our U.S. policy really should reflect, it should reflect making sure that any time we enter any agreement like that, that the rights of the workers and that human dignity is treated respectfully and appropriately. But beyond that, we also need to make sure we're not outsourcing jobs. If you look in my jobs bill, I focus strongly on how do we develop manufacturing jobs here in this country that we don't ship overseas, and how do we bring some of those jobs that have ended up overseas back here to the U.S. We have to do it. We need to be making things here, and it's a fundamental principle that we need to stay on.
Now, another sticky thing that's out there that you hear about, and it's you know, it's part of the equation. You know, when you're running for Congress, you're going to hear it. Is immigration. You know, we've got a lot of immigrants in the 5th District, in Waterbury and Danbury, and all the major cities have got it. But even to a lesser extent, even towns, you know, like you know, Brookfield and maybe a bigger town like New Milford. I guess it's officially a city, but you know what I'm saying. There are immigrants all over. They are fulfilling a function. What's your thoughts on that for those that say, well, we ought to throw anybody that may have come in and you know, came in on an airplane and overstayed their visa, and now it's 12 years later, and you know, there's some that say just throw them out anyway, or whatever. So what's your thoughts?
You know, one of the things that makes America great is we are a nation of immigrants, and the story that is happening today, mostly to immigrants of Hispanic origins, is a story that has happened to almost every immigrant population that has come to America over time. I'm Italian and Irish and German, and all three of those groups were discriminated against at some point over the last 200 years history of America, more than that, and we're seeing it now. And so it's my great hope that what happened to my ancestors as their children and grandchildren grew up is what will happen there, is that it no longer becomes this issue of this huge negativity. We need to focus on immigration reform. We need comprehensive immigration reform. We absolutely do. We need to provide a path forward to the hardworking men and women who are here, who are contributing to society, and who are looking for a path forward and want to follow the rules and do things the right way and become American citizens. And the sort of throw everyone out mentality is not going to help us grow as a nation.
Well, obviously, if they're involved with some criminal activities, we got enough of our own criminals. We don't want them. But anybody that's been like that example I used, someone's been here 12 years or 15 years and has done a good job. It's just like a case of the snafu with the paperwork. It's just so onerous. Some of them have gone through. I've had examples where they've gone through 3 different lawyers trying to figure out how to get through the paperwork deal. So it's a sore issue for some, and for others, they have the same attitude that you have, which is, we've had immigrants the entire time the United States has existed. So some other thoughts. How's the campaign going in general?
Oh, it's going really well, really, really well. In fact, we've just come off of a number of different wonderful endorsements, opened up a headquarters in the city of Waterbury, an office out there where we had a ton of folks at that opening. Things are going really wonderfully here in Danbury, and every day I'm out there knocking on doors, talking to folks, and really listening to what they have to say. And in doing that, I've been growing support, as I said, here in Danbury, out in Bethel, surrounding areas, all across the 41 districts, out in the city of Meriden. I was just recently endorsed by the former town chair there of 26 years, Frank Cirillo. I have endorsements from a former state senator up in New Britain, Joe Harper, out in Waterbury, former Senator Bob Dorr. So the last time we talked, you'd asked about this. I think I'd told you about some of the local endorsements I had for my neck of the woods, and so now it's great to be able to say that people are coming together, not just in my region, but all the way across the district. It's 41 towns, and I'm just having a great time getting out there and getting to know folks and letting people get to know me, and talking issues with everyone, and letting this thing grow into a great, wonderfully strong foundation and good campaign with a lot of strong momentum heading towards the real campaign season here.
Okay. Now, can you, in the last 30 seconds, can you give a telephone number if people got questions, a telephone number, and your website again?
www.danroberti.com. And the best number, 860-592-0056.
And that's if you're looking for volunteers to work on the campaign also.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. We're always looking for volunteers.
They're waving to me, so that means it's time to go.
Always a pleasure.
I want to thank you for coming on the show. I want to thank the viewers for tuning in to Community Forum. Tune in next week, same time, same station. I'm sure we'll have another interesting program. Good night for now, and we'll see you then.